Pressure is an uncomfortable, often unwelcome force, but it is one of the greatest catalysts for growth. Nothing significant is ever developed in comfort. The most resilient trees are the ones that have faced the harshest winds. The strongest warriors are those who have endured the toughest battles. If you're feeling pressure in life right now, it's not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're growing. Look at nature. Diamonds are not formed in soft, gentle conditions. They are created deep within the earth under immense heat and pressure. Without that intensity, they would remain just carbon, ordinary, and unremarkable. The same principle applies to our lives. Without pressure, we would never discover our true strength, our hidden potential, our ability to rise above. Think about a seed. When it's planted in the soil, it is buried in darkness, completely surrounded, seemingly trapped. But that seed is not buried to stay underground. It is buried so it can break through. The pressure of the soil forces its roots to go deep before it ever reaches the surface. If the seed never faced resistance, it would never develop the strength to grow into a tree. In the same way, the challenges pressing against you are not meant to crush you. They're meant to strengthen you for what's ahead. Many people want growth without struggle. They want promotion without pressure, increase without inconvenience. But pressure is what prepares us for the next level. A weightlifter doesn't build muscle by lifting light weights that are easy. It's the resistance, the strain, the difficulty that causes the muscles to grow. The same applies to life. If everything came easily, we wouldn't develop endurance, perseverance, or resilience. In history, some of the greatest inventions, movements, and breakthroughs have come out of moments of intense pressure. People who faced adversity didn't shrink back, they rose up. Pressure forced them to innovate, to push beyond limits, to find strength they didn't know they had. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before he finally created the light bulb. If he had avoided the pressure of failure, he would have never achieved success. Pressure isn't comfortable, it's not easy, but it is necessary. The difficult seasons, the unexpected challenges, the moments when you feel overwhelmed, these are the very things molding you into a stronger, wiser, more capable version of yourself. You may not enjoy the process, but one day you will look back and realize that every ounce of pressure was shaping you into who you were meant to be. Opposition is an opportunity. Opposition is not a sign that you are on the wrong path. It is often the greatest confirmation that you are headed towards something significant. Every person who has ever accomplished anything great has faced resistance. The very obstacles that seem to be blocking your way are often the stepping stones to your next level. When you face opposition, it is not the time to back down. It is the time to press forward with even greater determination. Look at history. Every major breakthrough, every movement that changed the world was met with fierce opposition. When the Wright brothers tried to build the first airplane, people mocked them. Experts said it was impossible, but had they given up at the first sign of resistance, we wouldn't have airplanes today. When Thomas Edison was working on the light bulb, he failed over and over again. If he had seen those failures as signs to quit, the world would have remained in darkness a little longer. The pressure of opposition did not stop them, it propelled them. The same is true in nature. An eagle builds its nest high on the cliffs, and when the time comes for the young eaglets to fly, the mother begins to remove the soft padding from the nest. The once comfortable place becomes sharp and uncomfortable. The eaglet is forced out, and though it may struggle at first, that very opposition is what teaches it to spread its wings. Without the discomfort, without the push, it would never learn to soar. David faced opposition before he ever stepped into his destiny. Goliath stood before him, an intimidating, overwhelming force. But David didn't see the giant as a roadblock. He saw him as an opportunity. Defeating Goliath was the key to his promotion. Without that opposition, David would have remained a shepherd boy. What looked like an obstacle was actually an open door. Many times, when opposition arises, the natural instinct is to shrink back, to question whether you are capable, to wonder if you should take an easier route. But opposition is often an indication that you are on the verge of something significant. The greater the resistance, the greater the reward. When adversity comes, it is not a reason to retreat. It is a sign to rise higher. Opposition forces you to dig deeper. It stretches you, strengthens you, and reveals the determination within you. It is not there to stop you, it is there to sharpen you. The people who make the greatest impact are not those who had an easy road. They are the ones who faced obstacles and refused to quit. Opposition does not mean you are failing. It means you are stepping into something greater. Life is full of seasons. Some are filled with joy and abundance, while others bring challenges and uncertainty. In those difficult times, when the winds of adversity blow and the storms of life rage, it is easy to feel shaken, to question, to wonder if things will ever get better. But just like a tree that remains firmly rooted in the ground, no matter how strong the storm, you must stay planted in faith. When you remain grounded, when your foundation is unshakable, no force can uproot what God has planted in you. Think about a tree. Its strength is not in its branches or leaves. Its strength is in its roots. The deeper the roots, the stronger the tree. It may bend under the weight of the storm, but it does not break. The same is true for you. When your faith is deeply rooted, when you trust that God is working even when you can't see it, no storm, no setback, no adversity can take you down. You may feel pressure, but you won't be uprooted. Farmers understand the power of being planted. When they place a seed in the soil, they do not see immediate results. There's no instant harvest. But they don't dig up the seed every day to check if it's growing. They trust the process. They water it, they nurture it, and they believe that in time it will break through the soil and bear fruit. Your faith works the same way. You may not see results yet. It may look like nothing is changing. But just because you don't see movement doesn't mean growth isn't happening. Joseph was given a dream that he would be a leader. But before he ever reached the palace, he faced betrayal, false accusations, and imprisonment. If he had given up in those dark moments, if he had abandoned his faith when things looked hopeless, he would have missed the promise. But he stayed planted. He trusted that even in the pit, even in the prison, God was still working. A delay is not a denial. Just because you don't see progress right now doesn't mean God isn't positioning you for something greater. When the pressure increases, when the challenges feel overwhelming, that is not the time to walk away. That is the time to dig your roots deeper. Because the greater the storm, the greater the opportunity for your faith to grow. When you remain steadfast, when you refuse to be shaken, when you hold on to your faith, even in the hardest seasons, you position yourself for breakthrough, for favor, for everything that has been promised to you. Struggle is not a sign that you are failing. It is often the very process that leads to breakthrough. The greatest victories, the most profound transformations, the most significant moments of growth do not come in ease and comfort. They are born in the struggle. It is in the moments when you feel stretched, pressed, and tested that something inside you begins to shift. The resistance you are facing is not there to stop you. It is preparing you for what's next. Look at the process of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. When the time comes for it to emerge from the cocoon, it faces an intense struggle. It pushes, it fights, it strains against the confinement that once protected it. But that struggle is necessary. If you were to cut the cocoon open and make it easier, the butterfly would never develop the strength to fly. The process of pushing against the resistance forces fluid into its wings, preparing it for the life it was meant to live. The struggle is what makes the breakthrough possible. The same is true in your life. The challenges you face, the obstacles in your path, the moments when you feel like giving up, these are the very things that are making you stronger, more resilient, and more prepared for the blessing ahead. Without struggle, there would be no growth. Without resistance, there would be no transformation. David had to fight Goliath before he became king. The Israelites had to march around Jericho before the walls fell. The woman with the issue of blood had to push through the crowd before she received her healing. Breakthrough didn't come when things were easy. It came when they pressed forward despite the difficulty. Every great achievement, every testimony of victory, every moment of triumph is preceded by a season of struggle. When a mother gives birth, the pain of labor is intense. It is uncomfortable, exhausting, and overwhelming. But the very pain she is experiencing is what brings forth new life. The struggle is necessary for the miracle to happen. Gold is purified in fire. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Muscles grow through resistance. The struggle you are facing is not wasted. It is refining you, shaping you, strengthening you in ways you may not yet understand. What feels like pressure today is actually the preparation for what is coming. The weight you are carrying, the challenge you are enduring, the battle you are fighting, it is not meant to break you. It is pushing you toward the breakthrough that is on the other side. Pressure is not a sign that God has abandoned you. It is often the very thing He is using to move you into your destiny. When life feels overwhelming, when doors seem to be closing, when circumstances feel like they are pressing in on every side, it is easy to wonder if things are falling apart. But what if they are actually falling into place? What if the pressure you are feeling is not meant to crush you, but to position you? Think about Joseph. He had a dream that he would one day be a ruler, but before he ever saw the fulfillment of that promise, he faced unimaginable pressure. He was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and falsely accused. For years he endured hardship and uncertainty, but what looked like setbacks were actually setups. If he had not been sold into slavery, he would have never ended up in Egypt. If he had not been falsely accused, he would have never been placed in prison. And if he had never been in prison, he would have never been positioned to interpret Pharaoh's dream and step into his destiny. What seemed like pressure was actually God aligning him for the palace. The same is true in your life. That job loss, that closed door, that difficult season, it may feel like pressure, but it is actually positioning. Sometimes God has to close one door to open a better one. Sometimes He allows pressure so that you don't stay stuck in a place you were never meant to remain. A mother eagle builds a nest for her young, but when the time comes for them to fly, she starts to remove the soft padding, making the nest uncomfortable. What was once a place of safety and comfort becomes a place of pressure. Why? Because if the eaglets never experienced discomfort, they would never leave the nest. The pressure forces them to spread their wings and step into what they were created to do. Moses was raised in Pharaoh's palace, but he wasn't meant to stay there. When he killed an Egyptian and fled into the wilderness, it may have looked like a mistake, like a failure, but it was in the wilderness that God prepared him for His true purpose, to lead His people out of Egypt. What seemed like pressure, rejection, and a life turned upside down was actually divine positioning. God knows exactly what He is doing. The pressure you feel is not random. It is strategic. He sees the full picture when you only see a piece. The things that feel like obstacles are often the very things that are pushing you toward the future He has prepared for you. What feels like a crushing weight today is often the hand of God repositioning you for something greater. Adversity is not meant to defeat you. It is meant to reveal the strength, resilience, and gifts that have been inside you all along. Sometimes you don't know what you're capable of until life puts you in a situation where you have no choice but to rise higher. The pressure, the struggle, the difficulty, these are not roadblocks. They are tools God uses to bring out the greatness within you. A seed contains everything it needs to become a mighty tree. But as long as it sits on a shelf, its potential remains locked inside. It must be planted, buried in the soil, and put under pressure. Only then does it begin to break open. What looks like destruction is actually the beginning of growth. In the same way, adversity forces you to dig deep, to push beyond limitations, to tap into strengths you didn't even realize you had. Think about a pearl. It is not formed in calm, comfortable conditions. It is created when a grain of sand enters an oyster and causes irritation. The oyster responds by releasing a substance that over time transforms the irritation into something beautiful. Without that adversity, the pearl would never exist. The same is true for you. Sometimes the very thing that seems to be causing you the most trouble is what is producing something valuable in your life. Moses never saw himself as a leader. He doubted his ability to speak, questioned his qualifications, and resisted God's call. But it wasn't until he faced the adversity of standing before Pharaoh, leading a rebellious people, and walking through the wilderness that his true potential was revealed. He wasn't just a shepherd. He was a deliverer. He wasn't just an outcast. He was chosen for something greater. Adversity forced him to step into the leader he was always meant to be. David was just a shepherd boy until he faced Goliath. Esther was just a young Jewish girl until she faced the threat of her people's destruction. Gideon saw himself as weak until he was called to lead an army. In every case, it was adversity that revealed their hidden strength. If they had stayed in comfort, their full potential would have never been unlocked. Your challenges are not there to hold you back. They are there to push you forward. The difficulties you face are not working against you. They are working for you. The pressure you feel is not random. It is intentional. There are gifts, talents, and abilities inside you that will never come to the surface unless adversity forces them out. It may not feel good in the moment, but the very thing you see as a struggle is the key to unlocking the next level of your life. Fear will whisper lies, telling you that you're not strong enough, not qualified enough, not ready enough. It will try to paralyze you, convincing you that the risk is too great, the opposition too strong, the challenge too overwhelming. But fear is not a wall. It is an illusion. It only has power if you believe it. The truth is, fear can't stop you unless you let it. Look at the Israelites when they stood on the edge of the promised land. God had already told them it was theirs. The victory was guaranteed. But when they saw the giants in the land, fear took over. They forgot the miracles, the Red Sea parting, the provision in the wilderness. They let fear convince them that they weren't capable, and because of that, an entire generation missed their destiny. Not because they weren't strong enough, not because they weren't chosen, but because they let fear stop them from stepping forward. Fear is a master of exaggeration. It makes problems seem bigger than they are. It magnifies obstacles and minimizes your ability. But fear is also a liar. It told Moses he wasn't a leader. It told Gideon he was too weak. It told Peter he would sink. And yet every single time when they stepped out, despite their fear, they saw miracles. Peter walked on water, but notice that he didn't step out when the sea was calm. The waves were already crashing. The wind was already blowing. Nothing about the situation felt safe. Yet when Jesus called him, he stepped out. And as long as he kept his focus on Jesus, he did what fear said was impossible. The moment he focused on the storm, he began to sink. Fear didn't pull him under. The storm didn't pull him under. His own doubt did. Fear loses its grip the moment you decide to keep moving forward. A lion's roar is loud, meant to intimidate. But the roar itself can't harm you. It's just noise. The enemy will send fear to try and keep you from your destiny. But it's just noise. The challenge may look big, but God is bigger. The obstacle may seem impossible, but nothing is impossible for Him. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward in spite of it. Fear may show up, but it doesn't get to control your decision. It doesn't get to decide your future. It doesn't have the authority to hold you back. You have a calling, a purpose, a destiny. Fear may try to stand in your way, but it can't stop you. The only thing standing between you and everything you've been created for is the choice to step forward anyway. Life will test you. It will push you to your limits, stretch you in ways you never imagined, and challenge everything you believe. The pressure may be intense, the weight may feel unbearable, and the temptation to quit may be stronger than ever. But victory doesn't come to those who have never struggled. It comes to those who refuse to break under the weight of adversity. Look at the tallest trees in the world. They stand strong, towering above everything around them, but they didn't grow that way overnight. They have faced storms, endured harsh winds, and been battered by the elements. Yet they remain standing. Their strength is not in their branches or leaves, it's in their roots. The deeper the roots, the stronger the tree. The same is true for you. The storms you face are not meant to destroy you. They are meant to deepen your roots, to strengthen you for the victories ahead. David faced Goliath, but that wasn't the first battle he had to fight. Long before he ever held a sword, he fought lions and bears while tending sheep. Those battles prepared him for the giant. If he had broken under the pressure of smaller challenges, he would have never been ready for the victory that made him a king. Every difficulty, every challenge, every trial you endure is building you, equipping you, preparing you for something greater. A blacksmith knows that metal is not made strong by sitting untouched. It is heated in fire, hammered, and shaped. Without the fire, the metal remains weak. Without the pressure, it never becomes useful. When you feel like life is pressing against you, when the heat is rising, when the battle seems unrelenting, remind yourself that you are being forged into something stronger. The process may not be easy, but the result is victory. The enemy doesn't attack what isn't a threat. If you are facing intense opposition, it is because there is something valuable inside of you. The pressure is proof that there is a calling, a purpose, a destiny waiting for you. If you weren't meant for greatness, the challenges wouldn't be so strong. If you weren't on the verge of something significant, the resistance wouldn't be so fierce. The battle is not a sign that you are losing. It is a sign that victory is within reach. An eagle faces storms differently than other birds. While smaller birds look for shelter, the eagle spreads its wings and rises above the storm. It doesn't run from the wind. It uses the wind to lift it higher. The challenges you face are not meant to bring you down. They are meant to take you to new heights. The pressure, the struggle, the hardship, they are not there to break you. They are there to strengthen you, to elevate you, to prepare you for the victory that is coming. No matter where you are in life, no matter what you've been through, no matter how many victories or setbacks you've faced, you haven't seen your best days yet. There is more ahead of you than behind you. The dreams in your heart, the promises spoken over your life, the plans that God has for you, they are still unfolding. Just because you've reached one level doesn't mean that's all there is. Just because you've experienced challenges doesn't mean your story is over. The best is not behind you. The best is yet to come. Look at an artist painting a masterpiece. If you walk in halfway through, the canvas may look unfinished, messy, or even chaotic. If you judge the work based on what you see in the middle of the process, you might think it will never turn into something beautiful, but the artist isn't done yet. The vision is still unfolding. Your life is the same way. You may not see the full picture right now. You may feel like things aren't making sense, like you're stuck in the middle of a story that isn't going anywhere. But the author of your life is still writing. The masterpiece is still in progress. Abraham was given a promise, but for years nothing seemed to happen. Joseph had a dream, but for over a decade he faced betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. David was anointed as king, but he spent years hiding in caves before he ever sat on the throne. If they had given up in the waiting, they would have never seen the fulfillment of what was promised. So the delay wasn't denial. The process wasn't punishment. It was preparation. What seemed like setbacks were actually setups. A farmer doesn't plant a seed and expect a harvest overnight. He knows there is a season of waiting, a season where it looks like nothing is happening. But just because he doesn't see growth above the surface doesn't mean the seed isn't developing roots. The deeper the roots, the greater the harvest. You may feel like you've been in a season of waiting, like nothing is changing, like you're stuck in the same place, but beneath the surface, things are shifting. What you can't see is that the foundation is being laid, the groundwork is being established, and the very thing you've been believing for is growing. Life has a way of convincing you that your best days are in the past, that what you've lost can't be restored, that you've made too many mistakes to step into something new. But that's a lie. The same God who parted the Red Sea, who brought dry bones back to life, who turned water into wine, is the same God who is working in your life right now. If He did it before, He can do it again. If He made a way then, He can make a way now. There are doors that haven't opened yet, opportunities you haven't walked into yet, victories you haven't experienced yet. No matter how good things have been or how difficult things may feel, this is not the end of your story.